Recording.
Just started.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all for coming for today, May 6th, our monthly meeting for the month of May. And I just want to say that we've got quite a lineup of people here today to present. So I want to first just make some announcements, I guess, or actually we have Cammie Blackstone there. She wants to make an announcement, so I'll do that first. You want to take care of that, Cammie?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Yeah, there was a couple things I wanted to just bring to your attention. We've probably heard there's been quite a bit of crime on Lower Terraville, with a number of places getting broken into. Boa Vida was broken into a few months ago, but then Brothers Pizza, the Riptide, both got broken into in the last few weeks. Also on Vicente, old Mandarin Islamic was also broken into and robbed. So I don't know if there's a way that Pops can kind of step up and request Terraville Station to maybe do periodic, patrols through the Lower Terraville. In addition to that, because of the parklets, or the shared spaces, it's been kind of a magnet for homeless individuals that are, shooting up and breaking glass and doing, some things that are not good for our neighborhood. And so I just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention. I'm sure that you're hearing it from everyone, but I'm just kind of speaking for the Riptide guys. And then the other thing I just wanted to just mention is that we are looking to open up kind of a general store on the corner of Terraville and 47th Avenue. I think you all remember that there was the Great Highway Market that was there for years and years and years. When the fire happened at Great Highway Market that burned the Riptide down, they chose to not reopen. So that neighborhood doesn't have a market right now. And this would be kind of a market to serve that neighborhood, but also beach supply stuff for people that are enjoying the Great Highway when it's closed forever. How long, I don't know. I think they're going to reopen it soon, but more people have discovered Ocean Beach and just sort of that neck of the woods, that Lower Terraville. So it'd be, offering things like that for those people and for the neighborhood. So those were the kind of the points I wanted to make. And I've always been a fan of Pops for a long time. I just kind of have been snooping on the sidelines, but I just thought I would join this time.
Okay, well, thanks, Cammie. With regards to the crime, one of the things that I've talked to the police captain with Captain Rainsford here is that they just don't have enough people to patrol and be everywhere. And I've made this, I've made that pitch before, just because we had crime further up Terraville as well. And
sure.
The big thing that they're working on, as well as Chief Scott and Supervisor Marr, is that they want to make sure that people have cameras, surveillance cameras, because especially high resolution ones, so that they can, get a proper ID on faces, proper ID on cars and license plates. And with lower quality cameras, they can't really see much. They can't pull much data out of that. Also, there's supposed to be a program that I think Gordon Marr's office is trying to do, where they're able to, I think they're shooting for about $50,000 to help supplement people buying cameras, so that if there's areas where, you're paying maybe $800 for a camera system, they'll be able to, rebate you back $400 or something like that.
Oh, wow, that's great.
They've been trying to get that going, but COVID kind of hit and it kind of stalled out because they weren't sure what the budget's like. But it looks like the budget is coming back kind of robust, so we'll see. But if there is anybody out there in Beachside that has camera footage, that is the best way to go. Unfortunately, and then later, maybe we can do something about talking to Supervisor Marr's office about supplementing possibly insurance deductibles when you have to repair for your losses.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just bringing it up because I know sometimes some merchants are a little hesitant to come forward to mention it. But I got, their permission, and everybody down there is a little nervous right now. So just bring it up.
Surveillance, lighting. I'll definitely mention it to Captain Rainsford and also to Supervisor Mar.
Great, thank you.
There's more staff is not here on the, I don't see anybody on the screen here, so, okay. I'll definitely mention that. Thanks, Cammie.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm gonna just kind of move on down the agenda here. Rob, pardon, I might be mispronouncing this. Aiavao? Is he here? No, he's not. Or is
No, so I'm here in his stead,
okay, Ben Blyman.
everyone. Yes, it is I instead of Rob. Rob couldn't make it, but I'm here.
I've seen you before, but and I think I've seen you in an article or two in the newspaper. So thank you for coming.
Yeah.
You give
No,
yourself
I'm excited to be here. I know Cammie well. I've met a few of you. I recognize you from around, but I'm here to discuss the Small Business Recovery Act. So let
Oh,
me know
wait,
when
Ben,
it's time.
Ben,
Yes.
make sure you talk about the Land Use Committee shared spaces.
Oh, I will as well. Yes, they're all together. Yeah, absolutely. Can you all hear me okay? I was getting my internet, I think, was a little patchy there for a minute, but it's okay. All right. So I am here to present, I'll try to do this as briefly as possible. There's two pieces of legislation coming down the pipeline. They're both coming simultaneously, and it's important that everybody's aware of them. Specifically, I'm going to focus on the Small Business Recovery Act, which is a piece of legislation put forward by the mayor's office about a month and a half ago. And what the mayor's office is very focused on doing is cutting the red tape around opening small businesses in San Francisco. So I'm a small business activist. I've owned 11 bars and restaurants in the city. I own a couple dispensaries. I've had an events company, and I also am responsible for organizing the bar owners in San Francisco into a fairly active group.
Ben,
70 of us bar owners. Yep.
Ben.
Is it breaking up?
It just did. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I hold on a second. See if I can get to a different location here in my house. Just today, we've been having issues. I have a hotspot here. Does this feel okay?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Cool. So I'm a small business organizer. I'm a small business owner. We have some issues that have been plaguing small businesses in San Francisco, and this seeks to address some of them. The Proposition H, which was the ballot measure on the last election cycle, sought to clean up some of the red tape. This is really could be considered Proposition H 2.0. It takes some of the most effective and popular parts of Proposition H and expands them. It also does a lot for entertainment and arts and performance in the city without opening up any sort of fire hoses of noise in the neighborhoods. So I'm going to go through the measure right now, just kind of piece by piece, and feel free to chime in and ask questions. We can do them at the end. I don't mind if you cut me off. Just go ahead and go for it. So the first thing it does is that so Proposition H principally permitted small business, and those are very specifically smaller businesses, that you are guaranteed to get a permit within 30 days of applying for your business. So one huge issue that we've had is that it literally takes years sometimes to open something like an ice cream store or a shoe store, where because of holdups that are completely as a part of the city bureaucracy, you're unable to open. And the problem is the smallest businesses do not have the ability to pay rent for a year and a half while they're waiting for the city to get its bureaucracy in order. So this would expand it outside of neighborhood commercial districts to citywide. It's a very popular measure. It's just to get things open. It doesn't change things like liquor license laws or other things that require process. So there are already processes to slow down some of the businesses that may need a little more community input, but this would just be for principally permanent businesses that do not have any of those extra steps. The other thing that it does is previously, if a business had one use in a storefront and then was vacant for 3 years, that use essentially expired. And if that same kind of business wanted to move back in, they would require a conditional use permit. You can think of this for somewhere like a movie theater. When it was a movie theater and then it expired, no new movie theater wants to move in there because they need to get a conditional use permit. And conditional use permit, I know from experience, adds a minimum of 8 months and $15,000 a minimum to the costs and the timeline for opening a business. And that's $15,000 just not counting the rent you're paying. That's $15,000 for a permit expediter and for the mailers you have to do in the processes. So that it addresses that as well. The next thing it does is that so this is one item that some people kind of bristle at a little bit, but it's important to explain it correctly. We have a formula retail ban in San Francisco. We don't have a ban. If you're trying to put a business in that has more than 11 worldwide locations. The problem with this that we found is that the giant evil corporations, in my opinion, evil, because I'm a small business owner, so I'm allowed to say that, they don't have 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 locations, right? They have thousands or hundreds of locations. And so by making the cutoff at 11, you've really stopped some of our favorite local businesses from expanding the way that we wanted them to. And what we want to do is encourage places like, we want there to be more Phil's, we want there to be more Suvlas and these popular places that we have around that could expand. So what this does, it's really important. It does not remove the conditional use permit for those smaller groups. But if you have 20 or fewer locations between 11 and 20, it just guarantees you a hearing for your conditional use permit in 3 months. And the reason for that is the smaller chains don't have the money to wait a year or two to have they just don't have those means. So what this is trying to do is really focus on the smaller, technically formula retail, but in my mind, it's not even close to formula retail. So take with what you will from that. And I'm happy to answer questions about that. The next item that it does is it gives more flexibility to existing businesses. So one is it'll allow accessory dwelling units to be built in the rear ground floor of commercial spaces, as long as there's 25 feet depth of the street facing retail space that remains as a commercial use. So this solves two problems. It can give landlords and business owners extra revenue, and it also can help us build more housing in the city, which maybe we had a little pause with COVID, but it's back on. Additional dwelling units are currently allowed in residential, but not in commercial. It allows restaurants to host accessory catering businesses in their kitchens. This is a really big thing for us. A lot of restaurants in town are not open during the day, and you have a lot of small caterers, people who do pupusas and who do dumplings and things like that, who are looking for inexpensive spaces to rent out. But technically, restaurants are not allowed to rent their open, unused kitchens right now to those people without getting a conditional use permit, which is so onerous and so scary that tons of small businesses would never even go near a conditional use permit. So this would allow that, give additional revenue stream without disrupting pretty much anything in my mind. The next thing it does is it allows, it simplifies planning definitions for retail businesses, and it makes it smaller for businesses to do multiple things in the space. This doesn't mean that every business is going to do everything, but we want businesses to have freedom to flex their business models around and maybe offer coffee if they need to, or maybe sell some artisan jewelry or some wares. And right now the planning code makes that almost impossible, which basically stifles small businesses and keeps us from being able to adapt. The next thing it does is this is the other part of this that gets the most eyebrows raised, but it allows for rooftops to be permitted for commercial use. It does not allow bars. So get the idea of rooftop bars out of your minds now. It's not happening. It would allow restaurants, but the cutoff is 10 p.m. And it doesn't mean that the restaurants can just throw some tables on their roof. They still have to get all the requisite permits to make the roof accessible, to make it safe, to make sure that they pass all their building and planning permits for it, but it makes it so they don't need to go and get a conditional use permit for that. The other thing that's really important about this is it only applies to single story buildings because of the way the code is. So this is not going to happen on if there's a bar or sorry, a restaurant downstairs and there's residential above it, it doesn't apply there. It's just for single story buildings. Allowing more activations of outdoor space is a huge priority of the mayor's office. And it's also a place where San Francisco has been incredibly behind the rest of the enlightened world on allowing outdoor activation of outdoor space for a number of reasons. This would allow that. Again, no bars and no and only on single story buildings. So that's important to note. And then this is near and dear to my heart. I forgot to mention, I'm currently the president of the Entertainment Commission in San Francisco. I am speaking tonight on my own accord. I am not using, this is not the official policy of them. This is just my opinion as a civilian. But it does, the following things it does are really, really important to our entertainment culture. Just as a caveat, performers, and Cami can attest to this, but performers and artists in San Francisco have been leaving, and they've been leaving for a number of reasons. The biggest is that it's not affordable to live here. But can you guys all hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, but that's a big reason, but also there have been fewer and fewer opportunities for them to be paid to perform. And the reason for that is the city has made it so hard to have performance that it makes no financial sense. And the only people who put on performances in the city, for the most part, do it because they out of a sense of love for performance and art. We don't think that should be the case. We think you should be able to love performance and art, and also we should be able to employ artists and performers to do things in the city. That does not mean that we think that every corner should have a thumping nightclub on it by any means. They should be relegated to areas that make sense. But for example, if you wanted to have one person with one acoustic guitar singing without a microphone in San Francisco currently, that's a CU is required for about 40% of the city to have that. And for another portion of the city, that is actually banned and it's not allowed, and you can never have it even if you wanted to. That makes no sense to us. It makes no sense to the artists. And it's part of the reason we've been such a hostile environment to arts and performance. We want to create a garden that breeds performance and makes it so artists live here and make our lives better. So that's one thing it changes. It allows one person with one acoustic instrument to perform without any permits that are required, which is huge, right? This has been something that I've been talking about for years. It also does a lot of things that are also really important. One, right now, there's a permit that we offer at the Entertainment Commission that's called the Limited Live Performance Permit. And that is for people who don't want to be full-blown entertainment venues. They just want to be able to have small band, acoustic bands, happy hours, things like that. Currently, the cutoff for that is at 10 p.m. This would expand that to 11 p.m. And that's a kind of an easier license to get. Again, we're trying to offer more opportunities and more ways for artists to be employed in San Francisco and performers. And the next thing it does is it removes the limitation on the one-time event permits in spaces. One-time event permits are expensive. They cost, I think, $600 every time you pull one. There are serious limitations on who can get those. I think you're limited to 12 per year at one address. And this would allow you to expand that indefinitely. But each time you did it, you would have to go through the process. And that process can also involve staff review who needs to make sure there's no complaints and things like that. But it also may involve having to come to my commission and us having to weigh in. You know, for example, if there's a neighbor who's like, I didn't sign up for this, you know, we may just say you can't have these permits. This isn't the point. But what we want to do is encourage not have a space be so limited to the amount of times that they can have entertainment in it. The next thing it does is it makes it so existing entertainment venues, if an existing entertainment venue moves out or loses its lease, in order for it to be changed as a use, the new person would have to get a conditional use permit. This is to stop speculative practices by landlords who don't see the dollars and cents in having an entertainment venue, but would perhaps want tech office space or luxury condos. This makes it a little more difficult. And the reason for that is our entertainment venues are an endangered species in the city right now. The dollars and cents barely add up, and we need to do everything in our power to protect them and make sure that they survive. And this would just add another step. If you want to get rid of an entertainment venue, you have to go before the planning commission, and and then you would have to appeal it to the board as well. So it would just give a little extra incentive to keep these around and make it work. I'm almost done, I promise. The next thing that it does is
you're here saying anyway, so keep going.
the next thing it does is, okay, so this is a big thing, but it's very wonky, and this is the last thing. The Entertainment Commission is 17 years old. We've been permitting businesses for 17 years. Previous to the Entertainment Commission, the permit was a cabaret license, and previous to that, there was no license. The cabaret license was given through the police department, who I think we all agree are wonderful people, but they should not be regulating nightclubs and entertainment in San Francisco. And before that, there were none. What's happened now is we have a number of existing grandfathered in businesses that don't have full entertainment permits, and for one reason or another may not be able to get them, or they may not want to go through the arduous process of having a full colonoscopy by your neighbors, even though they've been there probably much longer than their neighbors have and have been adding to our culture. So what this does is it offers a pathway for them to become permitted without them having to go through the regular. They've been here a lot longer than everybody else has, and it just kind of makes sense. And we run into this issue often at the Entertainment Commission, where it's like, that place has been here 30 years. You have some new neighbor who moves in and says, I don't like it, but they don't have the actual permit they need. What do we do about this? So this actually solves that once and for all, but it's pretty wonky. So again, it's a whole host of things. None of them in their own is a silver bullet for the small business community, but it adds very intelligently to the work done on Proposition H. And in my mind, it's a real game changer. The other item that's coming before land use, and they're both coming on the 24th, and I encourage you all to call in if you can, only if you're in support of these. If you're not in support, it's on the 25th, and it's, no, I'm just kidding. But the 24th is the land use hearing. The other item is it's called the Places for People, but it's the piece of legislation by the mayor's office, also co-sponsored by Raphael Mandelman and Supervisor Haney, which would make shared spaces program permanent for businesses all over the city. First of all, I just want to talk very briefly about why this is important. Our businesses especially hospitality, has been absolutely gutted by COVID. And even before COVID, we weren't doing very well. And so now we're starting to reopen, and I just want to make sure that nobody mistakes an open business for one that's doing well. Most of us have mountains and mountains and mountains of debt. Many of us did not qualify for forgiveness under the PPP rules because we were unable to hire back the staff that we needed to. We have often unpaid PG&E bills, water bills, trash bills, and rent that go back more than a year at this point. And so a lot of the small businesses, the restaurants and the bars and the venues that you see in town, they may be reopened, there may be people in there, but they may have hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars in debt right now, which they're going to wear around them like weight for the rest of their lives. And honestly, I don't think that a lot of them are going to decide to remain open once they see how long it's going to take for the debt. So we need to offer San Francisco hospitality businesses and small businesses every single opportunity they can have to build revenue, to hire back employees. Every parking space used for shared spaces equaled one job that was rehired. And that was from a OEWD analysis that they did. And so everybody's in it together, sales tax bases, et cetera. The other reason is just my personal feeling, which is that San Franciscans have not, we have not embraced outdoor culture the way that we should have, given that people can sit outside in San Francisco probably 300 days a year if they have a jacket, right? And in other cities, it's just a fraction of that, and their outdoor culture is much more vibrant. And so, this offers a once in a generation opportunity to kind of convert our game in San Francisco and really up how we enjoy our outdoor spaces and how we enjoy the European feel to our city, which everybody touts, but yet nobody could sit outside. Just as a caveat, I had a bar on the corner of Polk and Union, and I wanted outdoor seating, so I applied for it. It took me 3 months to get somebody out there. This is like 2011. And finally they came out and they evaluated my outdoor space. I had about 30 feet of frontage, and it was a wide sidewalk. And it took 6 weeks to get their response. And their response was, we are allowed by law to have one table and one chair. That's what they said. Officially. Yeah. So one person can hang out outside legally if they wanted to. And that was just, it was just a symptomatic of a different way of looking at things. The city didn't want complaints. They didn't want to deal with it. They gave you the minimum possible because the bureaucrats in the city just absolutely under no circumstances did they want to get a call from somebody who said you did this or you did that. So they kind of lowballed everybody. So this really would turn that on its head. There's obviously issues with shared spaces, accessibility for handicapped folks and differently abled people needs to be something that we balance against affordability. We cannot make this so they're so expensive that only the rich businesses in Pack Heights can have them, right? Everybody should have, every single small business owner, especially the ones with less means, should be able to apply for this without having to spend tens of thousands of dollars or $5,000 or whatever the number is. So we need to figure that out. And then equity, it's making sure that businesses get this who are all over the city and not just here. And then obviously there are design issues. Some of these look like shanty towns. They're not well made. They're an eyesore, and we get that. And then there are very good faith arguments about parking that we need to have as a city. Taking away parking is a concern, and it can create problems with bottlenecks. It can create problems with delivery trucks, double parking, et cetera. And so these are all things that need to be taken into account in this. But it's coming before the land use hearing and then before the full board, and they're going to try their best to work those out. The problem is, and you'll hear this a million times, the devil's in the details. And if there's a group of people right now who in good faith, though I don't agree with them, believe that homeless people should be able to put tents in the parklets at night and sleep. And that just doesn't work if you're a business trying to say serve sushi in there for lunch the next day. It just doesn't, these things don't work. So we're going to have a conversation as a city about what we want out of these. And then we're going to have to be flexible as a business community, but also there's certain things that, affordability, control by the business themselves who are investing all this money in it, and the ability to shut them down at night are all big things on our radar for it. So both of these issues are coming before land use on the 24th. They can both use as much support as possible. If you want to, you don't have to. I have a website that I started with Sharky, and he's the president of the Small Business Commission, and Manny, who's on the MTA Commission. We're all small business owners. It's called sfsmallbusiness.com. And you can sign up, and we will actually send, I'll put it in the chat box, we will send you texts on public comment on these items, and we'll do it, whenever they come, on the 24th and whenever they come forward. So you don't have to sit on the phone forever wondering when it's your turn to speak.
Right.
Whew, that was a lot of talking.
That was a lot of info, but also very, very good info. But I wanted
question.
Yeah, please.
I have Jessica there. I was just going to say there's a hand raised. Jessica, please.
Yes. Thanks so much for going through that. That was a really great overview of the Small Business Recovery Act, as well as the shared spaces. One of the things that I'm also on the board of North Beach Business Association, and we were able to meet with Robin, and he mentioned that the legislation was amended just recently to address some of the high costs. Exemptions would be made in the new legislation for small businesses that have revenue less than 2 million.
Yeah.
So I think that at least from initial concerns and thoughts that I could gather, I think that really alleviated some of the concerns I was hearing. But I don't know if maybe that's something we can flag for other small businesses to see like, okay, it's not $3,000, but $1,500 if you get a 50% waiver. Is that still a lot, right? Because it's not just the initial fee, it's also continual fees. And you're right, like there's so much variation in the type of parklet space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some built out really beautifully and some that look like they probably will go, they should go, so it really is a bigger conversation. I think the benefit of being in a small, business association like this one is that we have a better understanding of on the ground of like what works. So I think that might be something just like to put in the back of the minds of people here, like if you have a parklet that you really want to keep, like how we can get that feedback, or how do we reach out to the urban merchants, or work with merchants on Noriega, like what works for the Sunset District. And I don't know if there's a survey already being done that you're working on to kind of gather some of this feedback. But the reason why I bring this up and why I'm going on and on about this is because I actually, and I've heard you on the chamber calls too. And so I checked in with Emily. I'm like, have you heard any concerns? And she's like, I've never heard any concerns about the price. And that just really shocked me because, like the chamber, I think, talks about how a lot of their members are small businesses, but no one's brought up before just a few weeks ago that they don't want to pay like $6,000, $3,000 a year for these things. And so I'm just curious, like for me, someone who's involved, I didn't even know about the price. Mario didn't know about the price. So I called SFCDMA. I'm like, hey, Mario, do you know about this? And I didn't know about the price. So like, it's like moving so fast. I think that we need to figure out
you're
how
right.
to get the word out.
Yeah, well, so the good news is that the price is a big concern. I think the issue with the chamber and with GGRA, and this is not to take away from them because I work with Rodney and Lori all the time, and I think they're amazing, but I think sometimes they are seen as kind of representing the groups that have more resources, right? Like the restaurants that have resources and the businesses resources.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I was on the MTA call for the commission hearing the other day, and the main thing that came up is the price. I think I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but it does seem like people are very concerned about that and they're going to address it. I think there's going to be a kind of an exemption for business under 2 million, and then I think there's going to be additional giant fund for grants for the smallest business in marginalized communities, take the cultural districts and areas of the city that really have the least means to even to lower the rates. But I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that yet. But it is, like I said, it's one of the main things: affordability, accessibility, and control, right? Those are the things.
Yes. I think the thing I'm trying to say is we need more data from people to see what's actually going to impact them, because I don't think people know.
No, and they don't know what it's at. But I also think it's in flux, right? So Robin keeps amending this, and now we're getting in the weeds here. But really, what's going to come out of land use is going to be what everybody hears about, and then it goes to the board, and the board is going to be the ones who decide. And so, no, really, because it changes every week for us, right? But you're right. I mean, data would be great if we had the time. I don't know if we have the time to actually collect it, but I do believe that affordability is going to be is really, in my conversations with people, it's a top of mind issue. And $6,000 is too much for so many people that we'll see what comes of it. And you know what, like I said, the devil's in the details. If it's $10,000 and it's a campsite for unhoused members of our community every night, that's totally different than $1,500 and you can lock it up, right? And this is right now when it's going to be changed and adjusted. So we just don't, we need to call in and fight for the things that we care about, basically, so that they make sure they do that. Does that make sense?
It does. I get it. I think what I'm trying to say is that we need to slow down the process until people know this is happening, so we can, because you and I both know it goes to land use and it goes to the board the next week, it gets approved, and the next week it gets second reading, and then it's law after 30 days, whatever, like depending on.
And you can amend it after that, but I'm not in charge of this process. I'm just
Sure.
you know,
No, I
lonely
know,
business
but
activists. I don't know if realistically, honestly, if it's going to get slowed down at this point. The mayor is hard charging on this. I believe she wants to make it a pillar of her accomplishments, and I don't blame her. She's trying to just make sure that it happens, and that they are really prioritizing it. But I will say that the issues that you brought up around affordability are not, it may have been the first you'd heard of it, but for many, many people it was not. And it was like, it was the main concern. I thought it was going to be parking in MTA. It wasn't. It was affordability. And so there's a loud, vociferous group of people already fighting for that. And I would be shocked if that wasn't taken into account. I'm going to caveat this with another thing, and I don't know if you guys, if I've lost all of you, if we've lost you because we've gone in the weeds here, but I love this stuff, so I enjoy it. But there's a huge pushback from some of the departments that they're going to be, quote unquote, losing money from this, and they need to figure out how to recover those costs. So there's a little bit of a dance going on where the departments say, well, it needs to be $6,000. And the powers that be say, well, no. And they say, well, where are you going to get this other money from then? Right. And so they're talking about adding meters on side streets and expanding the hours that meters will be on places like Polk Street, where I'm actually the executive director of a CBD, of a community benefit district. And we had to have a call with them where they say, we're going to do meters till 11 o'clock or no shared spaces. Right. And so there's a dance going on that and so part of the reason I think that it was so expensive, and I could be wrong, is that they wanted somewhere to find them money from elsewhere or else, right? It's got to be this expensive. So, but again, I hear you, and this is a crazy democratic process. I don't think it's going to get continued, but maybe on affordability. But I think this is happening. So at least it's going to hearing. I don't know if it's going to pass, but I think it's going to hearing. Yeah.
I think, yeah. I don't want to monopolize. I'm just, throwing it
No,
out.
I don't know. These are great questions. I hope it's helpful for others, but that's kind of what's going on is, you have a city department who's, their only goal is to get more and more and more, more and more and more budget, not to ever reduce their budget. No, I will say they calculated that MTA calculated it would cost them $10 million out of a $1.8 billion budget. And they were really concerned about that. I thought that was not a significant figure when your budget is 18,000 or 1,800 times bigger than that. But yeah.
Okay. Ben?
Yes.
I think I have to cut you off.
Yes. Sorry, I can go forever with this. Are there any other questions, anyone on these? And I'm going to put a couple things in the chat box, and then I'll get out of your hair forever, I promise. The first is
I'd like to take you back.
Anytime. I'll come and present anytime.
You got one hat on right now, but I think you have a few more hats in the cabinet that you wear.
Yeah.
And, I think I'm interested to dig deeper into those hats that you do wear. So thank you for.
I put my email, the SF Small Business, and I'm putting a link to a petition. If you feel like signing and sharing it, go for it on these items. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Ben Blyman, thank you very much. Okay, and Vincent Mazzaferro, and Brian, I think you've been waiting patiently in the wings here, but I want to go ahead and say thank you for your patience. That was a lot of important information we got out there for small businesses. So please, without further ado, I'd like to have you guys go ahead and talk about the Westside Pump Station.
Yeah, surely. No worries at all. And I do have a presentation I was going to share. So it looks like the host needs to enable participant screen sharing.
Let me do that. You are now co-hosting.
Alrighty, thank you. Okay, so I'm here with Brian Carlamagno, our project manager representing the SFPUC, and we're here to talk about our Westside Pump Station Reliability Improvements Project. I'll start off with a brief intro to the SFPUC as a reminder, as well as the sewer system improvement program we have funding this project, and then I'll get into more of the gritty details of the project in the end here. So as a reminder, in case you don't know, the San Francisco Public Utility Commission manages the water for San Francisco, as well as several surrounding counties. It generates hydroelectric power through that transportation of water down here, as well as solar arrays and some other clean energy sources. We have a Clean Power SF program, which is clean power for San Francisco residents. And my favorite part of the agency, which we're here to talk about today, is the sewer, which takes that the water from the homes and businesses in the city, as well as the stormwater that falls on the ground, and treats it before sending it off into the ocean or bay. What's important to note, like I said, we have a combined sewer system. So we take all the stormwater that falls, as well as the wastewater from buildings. And that's a lot more than some of the other cities in this nation do. Not all of them are combined like this one. But we have quite a lot of miles of pipes throughout the city. A lot of those pipes are over 100 years old. So we're in the process of upgrading and replacing them. And throughout the city, we've got 3 treatment plants: the Oceanside Treatment Plant on the Oceanside, North Point Wet Weather Facility along the Embarcadero, which comes on when it's wet weather, and then the Southeast Treatment Plant in the Bayside, in the Bayview, which treats nearly 80% of our wastewater. So that's really the workhorse of our system. And yeah, it's a very vast system and a network underneath the ground that not a lot of people think about until there's an issue or something going wrong. So that doesn't mean that we just don't think about it ever. We use it every day, and it's very important that we're upgrading several different parts of this system. And yeah, for part of those upgrades, we're using what is a capital improvement program known as the Sewer System Improvement Program. And it's implementing upgrades to our gray infrastructure, which is the sewer pipes, our treatment plant facilities, our pump stations, as well as integrating green infrastructure, which is a stormwater management solution that takes stormwater and it treats it on site rather than pushing it into the sewer system through the natural process of plants and soils, and resulting in a cleaner public health in the environment. We're trying to treat all this water before it gets out into the ocean again. And without going to every one of these bullets, our level of service goals are addressing things like being reliable in the event of an earthquake, again, managing stormwater and minimizing flooding events, adapting to climate change, which we're seeing out along the ocean beach. If we just go out there, it's literally crumbling away, as well as maintaining ratepayer affordability throughout these upgrades and afterwards. So we have quite a lot of projects throughout the city. This map is dotted with projects, a lot on the east side, but a bunch on the west side as well. And this is the mixture of gray and green infrastructure projects. The green infrastructure projects, we have 1 in each watershed, totaling 8. And on the west side, you see this gray box. We're more concerned on the southwestern part of the map, I guess. That includes the Oceanside Treatment Plant, the Westside Pump Station, and the transport storage boxes, which line underneath the Great Highway. And I've got a little video here that's short that'll go into graphically what happens when it's raining, as well as showing some of the infrastructure. So this shows the west side of the city, and that's the Westside Pump Station there in the orange, with the blue circles indicating where the Oceanside Treatment Plant is. And as you can see, during wet weather, the natural gravity pulls the water into our sewers toward the transport storage boxes lining the outside of the city. And the Lake Merced area has a Lake Merced tunnel pipe, which transports that stormwater and wastewater to our pump station, which then pushes it up to the Oceanside Treatment Plant for treatment. And after treatment, it goes out to the discharge point, which is about 5 miles out into the ocean through an offshore outfall. And in extreme weather events, the transport storage boxes fill up. This doesn't happen too often, but in that event, not all of the water can be transported to the treatment plant to be treated. So there is partial treatment, which will, we have a diagram that'll show what that looks like from a cut perspective from the side. And as, yeah, if it's caught up here, you can see from the sewer, it's going into these transport storage boxes, which are these great large boxes, again, under the Great Highway, under the Embarcadero of the city. And these fill up and these baffles remove a lot of large pieces of debris and trash. It gets pushed out into the ocean with only partial treatment. So ideally that's not happening too much, but inevitably it happens. And I think we average about 7 a year or so. And these are referred to as combined sewer discharges. So when those happen, we post the beaches, letting people know that there's a partially treated wastewater only in that water, and it wouldn't be a good idea to go out and surf in these locations. All right, so going more into our nitty gritty on the project itself. Again, we're discussing the Westside Pump Station. So on this west side of the city, again, these transport storage boxes send that wastewater down to the treatment, or the pump station, I should say, and it goes to the Oceanside Treatment Plant. But before then, there's bar screens that again pull out a bunch more of the debris, the silt, the things that you shouldn't be flushing, and the things that get caught in the treatment or in the transport storage boxes, such as things from the street and branches and things like that. So the project specifically is upgrading and creating redundancy for several different aspects. The pumps themselves are lacking redundancy and need increased efficiency. Again, the bar screens, they're in need of frequent repair, and we could always use more of them. The electrical power feed is a big one, and a later diagram it'll show a top-down view of what that structure will look like after it's constructed. And it also includes ventilation system improvements for odor control, which in the past have been either underutilized or are in need of frequent repair. So this is how the facility looks now from a top-down view. You can see we're at the corner of the Great Highway and Slope Boulevard. The main station is right in the middle there, with 2 yards on either side for equipment and people coming in and out. And there's some structures, some art structures on the corner of the street there that are some animals. It's like I think it's a tiger and a bird, if y'all are familiar with those. And afterwards, while this is not as pretty of a render with colors, this shows how to the left of the building, the main building in the north yard, there will be a new electrical building constructed, as well as some perimeter fences and modified planters along the front of the facility. And then there's a relocating of those art sculptures further along slope rather than in the front of the building on the corner there. And so as far as impacts to the community that we can expect, and a rundown of what kind of upgrades electrically we're going to be doing outside of the building. The existing vault is currently at Skyline and Slope Boulevard, and we'll be creating a redundant power feed down along Slope Boulevard. And during construction of that, it's a open cut and cover where 1 to 2 blocks at a time, we'll be opening the street and putting that redundant feed in. And we're anticipating no major construction, traffic control or reroutes as a result of that, or impacts to the parking along Slope Boulevard that people utilize for the zoo, as well as some of the businesses out there. That's a pretty major stretch of Slope Boulevard. So while that won't be going for the full length of the project, that'll be one of the more immediate impacts we'll see as we start implementing these upgrades. And along the Great Highway, we're anticipating some impacts as well. We'll need to be staging some equipment in the rightmost lane, as well as accessing some of the facilities underground through that location. So what is currently 2 lanes going northbound along the Great Highway will be reduced to 1 lane just in front of the facility where we're doing that work. And the southbound lane won't be impacted at all. It's still going to be 1 lane down the southbound lane. And this will be, anticipating these impacts probably in a couple months maybe. It's not going to be immediate. We've already started some mobilization and relocation of the art sculptures, but we're not anticipating a traffic impact within about a month or 2. So our construction is, like I said, we're starting up now. We're just ramping up now. The project is slated to finish sometime around February 2024. And hopefully there will be a, by then there will be a decision on the status of the Great Highway, whether that's a partial opening or an incomplete opening. That's something that we're anticipating to, there's going to be more impact from traffic and people coming to the area as things open up more. So that's something our project team is aware of as they develop and approve a traffic control plan. And that's something that we'll be pivoting and responding to as we see more and more people come to the area. And then lastly, we've got some slides here showing renders of the facility. So that first slide showed the current sort of a pink colored salmon building. As you can see on the top image, there's redesigned planters. There's areas for people to walk by. There's currently a sidewalk there. And on the lower one, you see there's the new electrical building has art wall, which is slated to be implemented. And then the relocation of the sculptures along slope there. And this is as if you're standing at the end of the Great Highway looking down. So I breezed through that fairly quickly, I feel. But if at this time, if there's any questions or comments as far as timing or impacts, I'll just mention that we've been also presenting to the Irish Cultural Center, which has a facility nearby, and as well as organizing a presentation to the supervisor's office so that when they get questions or complaints about the project, they'll know a little bit more and can direct it to us. But as much as possible, we're trying to share information early and often. So I appreciate you having the opportunity for me to present here, and moving forward, when we have project updates, which we try and get out at least quarterly, but as frequently as necessary, if we could tag along in your newsletters or any kind of emails that you send out, that would be much appreciated as well.
Vincent, I do have a question. Have you talked to other than the Irish Cultural Center? I mean, there's a number of businesses and a hotel over there. Have you talked to them about accommodating them during the disruption that your project may cause?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I forgot to mention, as part of our coordination and outreach, we're participating in a monthly coordination meeting with other city agencies that involve SFMTA, Public Works, as well as GGNRA and the Coastal Commission. So through that outreach group, we hold community, in the past, I should say, we've held in-person community presentations, and we have a key stakeholder group, which includes a bunch of the businesses, as well as some of the businesses further north of the Great Highway and the Outer Sunset. So this is a conversation we've been having and mentioning with the folks. And while we haven't discussed a specific plan to address any impacts, it's something that we're totally open to. And moving forward is, we reach out and we send these emails and we have presentations, but it's not quite until we see people digging up the ground and there's actual traffic impacts that we get responses and questions about what we can do. So as I said before, as people ramp up coming to the area and our traffic impacts increase, we're just anticipating, working with the community to address and mitigate as much as that as possible. And yeah, I see potentially the work along slope being one of the more disruptive parts of the project as we enter construction. Like you're saying, specifically right around 46th and 45th area with Java Beach and Pasquales and stuff. So while we haven't had any formal conversations like that, that's definitely something we're anticipating. But yeah, we have a pretty extensive stakeholder list. So as much as possible, we're looking to beef that up and include as many businesses as well as residents in the area.
Okay, maybe a good idea to have a follow-up meeting. You said when are actually starting the actual big groundbreaking? Like you're going to actually start occupying and closing off lanes and stuff like that?
Yeah, Brian would have a better idea, but from what I understand, it's going to be ramping up toward the end of this month. And then as we get into June is when we're really going to be, middle or so of June is when we're anticipating the Sloat Boulevard impacts. Is that correct, Brian, as you understand it?
Yeah, that might be a little premature, but summer, fall of this year, we plan to really, the neighbors will see us and our presence will be seen with the construction activity at that point. We're preparing our traffic control plan in concert with SFMTA. So we're preparing detours and to minimize disruption to folks. So those will be in place before you'll see construction activity. So we're getting that a plan approved from MTA, and then we'll get those things in place, directing traffic and ensuring safety for the upcoming construction activity. So,
And you guys are going to be also occupying all the way up to Sunset Boulevard on Sloat? I mean, I saw those lines earlier. Are you guys going to be digging into, making holes in the lanes and stuff like that? On the road?
It goes up to Skyline, Albert, and our conduit work is expected to be along our alignment is close to the zoo and away from the businesses in the area. And the alignment is in one of the traffic lanes, and there's 2 traffic lanes on either side of Sloat, and we're expecting through traffic to be maintained throughout our construction. And this whole area will be, the construction crews will be very limited in their occupation of construction, where it'll be 1 block or a block and a half at a time. It won't be the whole thing won't be open at the same time.
And it's about a 3-year project.
Yes.
Okay. May I do some outreach to those businesses down there, and then later re-invite you guys over? Then we can have maybe a bigger discussion. I think this is going to be important enough. I mean, we're going to be living with you guys on this project for 3 years, so we want to try to see if we can accommodate everybody and mitigate issues early on, just like you're doing now. And I thank you for that.
Yeah, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, it's a great idea, Albert. Thank you for doing that.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, I guess it's still early on, and a lot of the businesses are not out that way that are in our membership, but there are some that are, and I want to make sure they do know about it. And if they have anything to say, better say it now. So let me, Vincent, Brian, let me circle back with you guys. Can you maybe put in the chat box your contacts, so if anyone's interested, they can reach out to you too?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with an email to you with a copy of this presentation as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Vincent.
Maybe I would suggest, Vincent, maybe that mailer that was prepared for maybe giving Albert a copy of that as well. That might be more descriptive, that he could quickly share with interested parties.
Yeah, surely. Yeah, I'll send a copy of the construction notice we recently sent.
All right.
Great.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for everyone's time. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all.
And I'm going to move to the next item on the agenda. That was very informative. And so now we're going to have SFMTA on Terraville, and then we're going to have SFPUC on Sloat. So it's going to be fun, guys. All right. And to help clean that all up, we have Vince Yuen. Sorry for being a little bit tardy, but I would like to hear about your refuse the refuse movement.
Refuse refuse. Say that 10 times. Thank you, Albert, for having me. Just introduce myself. My name is Vince. I live here in the inner Richmond, and I've been a San Francisco resident since 2003. And I was encouraged to do some more kind of civic duty, which I've been lacking. So I'm trying to make up for lost time and hopefully continue that. But what I came up with doing research on what I could actually do was this idea of cleaning our streets using citizen volunteers. And this is done in other places. Japan, most notably, has these cleaning groups. And so I just, beginning of the year, bought some trash pickers and went out with my 2 daughters, 6 and 4, cleaning our immediate neighborhood, and continued to kind of develop the idea into what's now kind of a branded campaign to have this collective effort behind cleaning and maintaining our streets and public spaces. And it kind of goes into the water and sewer, power, water and sewers, like all the stuff that goes in the storm drain gets into their system and it gets into the ocean. But they just showed you that, on average 7 times a year, we have these storms. So one thought is if we have a critical mass of people out there, we can just alert, say like big storm coming, everybody get out there and clean the storm drains, clean the gutters. Maybe we can, reduce the impact that we have being a coastal city. So I'm just trying to experiment with different ideas to all at the end goal of getting people involved into doing this, because it's something that we can actually do as citizens that's tangible. It's only treating the symptoms. There's some other things we'll have to do with policy and public awareness to really get that next step. But we're in the right direction and trying to build momentum by working with different resident associations, merchant associations, nonprofit NGOs that are kind of all focused on this type of effort. And so what I've been doing is doing these kind of 2-part waste audits where we literally count the litter and then we can quantify and just have an idea of the trash in given neighborhoods, because trash and litter is very hyper local. A lot of factors determine the situation from one side of the street to the other, one block to another, neighborhood to neighborhood. So just understanding the problem is kind of the first step. And then from there is building awareness. So we'll be throwing some more publicized and higher attended events to kind of get people motivated. But again, the ultimate goal is more frequent, lower attended events, you just picking up in front of your house or your block. That's really what it takes to maintain a clean neighborhood and clean streets, not the giant sweep, but just these little tiny picks every day. So I'm hoping to spread the word. I'm hoping you guys spread the word. I hope you guys join us at some point, and we're just trying to arm the people with the tools and resources which the city provides a lot of, and we're very lucky here in San Francisco that we do have a lot of these resources already in place. It's just up to us as citizens to take advantage of it and use these resources. So I'm very encouraged with some of the early turnouts and networking opportunities that have led to things that are pushing forward and what I envision for this campaign. And it can be anything. I have no ego. I don't care who gets credit. I just want it to get done, that we, turn into a culture where cleanliness is elevated like other cultures, Canada, Japan, which I think is very possible here in San Francisco, given the type of kind of civics that I know that we have in us. So yeah, I will post my website in the chat and my email. And then if you have questions right now, let me know. Open it up for that.
Vince, where are your campaigns? Can you give me a near calendar of places you're doing this?
Absolutely. So currently lots in the inner Richmond because I live here, but through connecting with different associations, I've done waste audits at Hayes Valley, and then we're going to have a kickoff event on Patricia's Green on the 22nd. Here in the inner Richmond, or just in the Richmond, I've done a waste audit in Clement Street and also Balboa. I was there today. Tomorrow, I'm doing an event with St. Anne's School. I'm trying to develop and establish these clubs within middle schools and high schools of neighborhood cleanup and beautification, and hopefully gamifying that, so you could say have a meet at this neighborhood, bring 3 or 4 schools together, compete somehow. I don't know what the game's going to look like, but compete against each other and clean the neighborhood at the same time. Trying to establish some events with like senior care and assisted living facilities to bring companionship to the senior citizens and clean streets. So, bar crawls. I have an event in the marina with a doggy daycare because I found out that dog owners have a vested interest in clean streets. They all have a story of the dog choking on something or eating something that makes them sick. So just trying to tap into that. And, I'm just trying to talk to as many people because that's what's been helpful in helping us push it to this point. It's just getting the word out. And I'm just so encouraged by all the support and all the people with great ideas or wanting to do things and connect and just make it happen. So, nothing in the sunset yet, but I would love to make that happen. St. Anne's, I guess, is in the sunset, but not out where you guys are. And then the inner sunset merchants and residents associations are very much on board as well.
How far are you covering on the inner sunset around the
What's
St.
that?
Anne? How far are you where do you Where do you
It's
clean?
wherever I can get basically organizers or sub-organizers or people to say, yes, I want to do this. So I've talked to Susanna Wise at the Inner Sunset Merchant Association, and she, is wanting to kind of figure out how to do something that's a regular cleanup or just, a bigger cleanup within the areas we kind of reopened. So also working with Fillmore Street Merchants Association, the Barbary Coast Neighborhood Association, which is out in the Embarcadero in Levi's Square. So, anywhere that has interest, that's my goal, is to kind of be that little gentle kick in the pants nudge to create these sustainable systems within neighborhoods to do this. One of the things I've recently come up with is some kind of app, maybe it lives within 311, which would be a map of all the blocks and public spaces that you could clean, and then it would have, you could turn it on while you clean, and it would track it so people could say, oh, on this block someone's cleaned in the past day. Over here it's turned purple because of decay. It was green before, but no one's been there for 2 weeks. Maybe I'll go over there. So just some kind of coordinated way, because again, the way to get clean streets is constant, smaller cleanups.
Okay. Any questions for Vincent?
I have one for Vincent.
Wesley?
Do you happen to know Jake Woodfin? He's been kind of doing some of this stuff out in the Sunset as well. He's been kind of on a smaller scale, and I know he's had some volunteers, but he's been consistently doing that for, I think for the year now.
Yeah, Jake of Branches Baptist Church. Yeah, I've connected with him. He's gonna do one off of Sloat. I think he put it on because they had one in the Inner Sunset. They had rain, so they switched to Saturday. He wants to get people involved. So that's exactly the type of relationship I want, is someone like Jake within your neighborhoods, kind of being that organizer, but I can support him with supplies from Public Works, maybe helping with some of the registration, with the promotion. So yeah, Jake is awesome, and he's totally on board with kind of this. We're still trying to play around with what the model looks like, how do you kind of co-brand it, or how much is taken over by like my campaign or organization. Unfortunately for Jake, it's just me. Otherwise, I'd love to be like, let me just take it all off your hands. You just be there. So that's the hope, is that we have enough infrastructure and like kind of sharpen the cookie cutter, that it could be like, okay, Jake has someone else who wants to cover this area, so you can get more granular. And then it's just like a plug and play. Okay, here we go. We set it up. There's the registration. Here's how we brand on social media, etc. And then you just be there and have the supplies. So,
okay,
a lot of
awesome.
steps till we get there. We're still early.
Okay, for sure. Because I know last month I reached out to him, and we're planning on highlighting him in our newsletter, but he was over on 9th and Irving, so wanted to kind of keep it on our side of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I know him coming
He's gonna
to
be out there. I know. What did he say? I think it's
end of May. I know for sure. He sent me a follow-up email afterwards, like a week ago. So
Yeah,
I'm planning on
30th.
highlighting him again. But if there's anything like we can do to like kind of help collaborate either on that and doing a promotion, I'm more than happy to help you out with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just my capacity, because it's like, I promised my wife I'd try not to do too much on the weekends, where people will come out. So I got to kind of pace myself here. Otherwise,
good.
I'd be there. I love trash so much. I love picking it up.
Love to hear it.
I think this might be a good thing coming in the coming year for us, because Terrell is going to get really trashed by the SFMTA project. And I saw how much garbage and debris, and I had to really be on SFMTA to keep it clean. But maybe we can activate some of our neighbors to do that as well, because that would certainly help us make the street a little bit more presentable to attract business and clients, while there's so much disruption going on. So might be something we should look forward to doing, and getting volunteers a little bit later this year. Okay. Any other questions from anybody? All right, Vince. Thank you very much. 2 Vinces tonight. That's a first for us. Okay. Now, Wesley, can you please go on the screen and pull up the Avenue Greenlight Grant?
For sure. Let me.
Thank you.
Open.
I sent you guys, POPs members, this grant a little bit earlier today. This is coming.
Vincent, do you see it?
Yes, we see it. I see
Awesome.
it. This is coming from. Oh gosh, I forgot the gentleman's name again. I'll have to dig it up because I want to give proper credit to him. But this person donated, I think it was $1.7 million to SFCDMA, the San Francisco Council of District Merchants, which is our umbrella merchant organization that's for the entire city. And that equates to, there's 34 members, 34 business corridors that belong to the SFCDMA, Taravell Street being one of them. And so if you divvy that up, that works out to $50,000 per street, per corridor for a grant. Wesley, can you move down to the second page? And there's a certain criteria and guidelines to the grant. We can't just, let's say, do it for movies and a coppin or something like that. But there are all these things that we can use it for. And I wanted to have you guys look at this. I also, I think most of you guys in POPs should have this on your email because I sent it just before the meeting today. I'd like you to look at it, and I'd like to get some suggestions from you guys, like which ones you would like to see us try to pursue. So I need to write a grant proposal to the council with regards to what we plan to do with this money. And I think at least half of the corridors have already submitted their grants and have already gotten their money. So we're a little behind here. So I want to play a little catch up and get this money and use it wisely. So is there anything you guys are looking at it like right off the bat, POPs members?
Looks good to me.
All of them? Is there anything I see here? There's public events, so that counts with movies and McCoppin, possibly the Christmas tree lighting. I don't know if COVID testing is going to be as relevant going forward. There's also like banners for polls, which I think could be good that if we could spend money like that, because I don't think that the mini grant program currently would allow for that type of an operation.
Do we need to like have a proposal?
Not yet. I'm trying to create one, but I don't want to make one out of my own head. I want to ask all of you for some opinions too.
Well, like I think this is great. Is like you could always say money will be used for projects such as, and then just include this whole list. Right? Or no? Is that not something that I'm not a grant writer, but if I could, be flexible, keep it flexible.
Yeah, but I think we should. I think that I haven't seen other people's or other groups' grants yet, and maybe I can ask for a sample. If you go to the first page, the lady's name is Ishelle Acosta. She's a wonderful lady. She's part of the Clement Street Merchants Association. She's the president there, and she's also become the secretary of the CDMA, and now she's also in charge of this particular project of doling out the grants. So I certainly can ask her about that, but I mean, I want to just maybe narrow it down to maybe what do you guys see as serious contenders of things you would like to use this money for? I mean, there's street closure, but I know we can't really close streets on Taravell because of the L line. Beachside was an exception just because that's where the street turns off. I mean, the streetcars turn off, and they were able to close that street there. But the rest of the way, we're not going to be able to do that. But there's marketing, which is cool. I also think that banners for polls might be not a bad idea, especially when we have the business the disruptions from SFMTA. We can use those banners to say open for business, please, please visit, shop local, things like that. I don't think we have a terrible problem with graffiti, fairly minor, but lighting,
Albert,
yes.
I think, why don't we also, since we already were talking about it earlier, concentrate on the community safety?
So the cameras, lightings, and security patrols?
Yeah.
Security patrol, I don't think you can afford with $50,000, but
You're not going to go very far with that, but you can do something with cameras and lighting.
yes, you certainly can.
And you, if you combine that with the branding, to me, they kind of would go together to make a terrible pop. Excuse the pun.
Yeah. A little pun there. Well, we also have some marketing already at hand that's already been paid for, which is the Civic Edge marketing that they use for Beachside Terraville. We can certainly have them modify some of that so that it not only just markets towards Beachside, but maybe all of Terraville, so we can use that as maybe a banner design so that we don't have to reinvent that wheel.
That will tie in with your beautification.
Yes. Okay.
And if you concentrate, my experience with grant writing, you want to have some specifics that will make you stand out above the crowd. So if Terraville comes in with some very specific plans in 3 concentrated areas, it'll look like you aren't just saying, give us everything.
Yeah. I think, well, like I said, I do want to focus in on a couple of key things that we think we really need on Terraville, and then we can go from there. Yeah, it's just that I think if we make it too broad a brush, it's a little bit too hard to do, and also 50,000 is just not going to cover all those different functions. Clearly, some of these things are more applicable for different neighborhoods. So we should find something that's right for us. I think the camera and the lighting, I definitely think that the banners and sound good, and then maybe we can save some money by utilizing the marketing that's already out there, that's already been custom made for us. Wonderful suggestions, Jessica. Margaret, anybody else?
Hey, Albert, this is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
I know, like, when we were for the high schools, when we would have grants for the teachers, where they apply to things. Would this be where you could put aside a certain amount for like the graffiti, broken windows, where merchants could apply for these things when needed, but only you allocate only a certain amount per request?
For damage?
Uh-huh.
That might be a parallel thing with what Supervisor Marr is doing right now. He's trying to create a budget to, like a fund to help businesses that get vandalized or robbed so that they can cover some of their like insurance deductibles when they make claims for the broken windows and maybe stolen merchandise. So that might be something that's already covered.
Okay. Well, that would be good. Then at least you can use this money towards something else. That helps everybody instead.
It's okay, Nancy. You didn't know that was in the works, but yeah, that was our lovely supervisor was thinking about that already. Cammie put out banners and she wayfinding and maps of businesses on the corridor. I think, yeah, that's what I think. Cammie, if you saw in and around Riptide down there, we put up a lot of banners. Actually, I saw you that day. I was putting up banners, I think. Oh no, I was.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's great. I just meant for all of Terraville. It just sort of like, I know that there's been a big push for staycations in San Francisco. I was on the Union Square bid luncheon today, and Supervisor Carmen Chu, City Administrator Carmen Chu, was talking about encouraging people for staycations and rediscovering San Francisco. So maybe some sort of marketing to other parts of the city to really come and enjoy the sunset and the Terraville corridor might be something.
Thank you. I'm writing this down. Okay. Thanks, Cami. And Doug, you've got beautification here. Any specifics on that? I see you on the chat.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just think when you use money, you know, everyone always like is driven to think about events, but we want this money to be used for stuff long lasting. So, you know, I don't know if it's I think it's just really kind of making the storefronts in the street look a little more inviting. I mean, it's kind of the whole, it's banners and it's, you know, is that planners? I don't know. I don't know if there's planter boxes or murals or what the right answer is there. We have to do like a street walk. But, you know, I think there's some parts of Terraville which aren't so inviting.
That's interesting you brought that point up. So I talked to SFMTA about their tree planting and plant planting that they're going to do, because now they're wrapping up segment A on Terraville Street, and the landscaping's coming in, and so are the street fixtures such as bike racks, and I think there's like some benches or some sort of seating that's going to go in. And I went back to the conversation of cherry blossoms instead of planting other trees. You know, I just thought the cherry blossoms are really awesome looking trees. They've already decided on some trees. I don't remember the species, but I was thinking that that's already been decided there, but maybe we can use part of this budget to buy cherry blossoms even for beautification.
Totally.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I checked with Home Depot and Lowe's in their landscaping department, and small cherry blossom trees are only about $100 each, so not terribly expensive. So anyway, that's another thought. Okay, well, I think so what I've got here is marketing and wayfinding with posters and banners, beautification, and also security, cameras and lighting. So how's that for a grant proposal? Margaret, you sound like someone with experience. 2 thumbs up, everybody? I can't see everybody's face. Wesley, can you take down the screen so we can, I want to see my lovely people. How's everybody? Everyone's coming back on the screen. Okay. What do you think? Does that sound like does that sound pretty good? I'll propose for marketing, street beautification, and cameras and lighting. I got 2 thumbs up from Margaret over here. All right, and a thumbs up from Claudia. Anybody else? Peter, Cami, Doug, you guys want Nancy, Jessica, Les?
Sounds good.
We're good with it. Perfect.
All right, I have not heard any nays here. Okay, very good. Thank you. And lastly, before, oh gosh, it's 8:30 already. Lastly, before I round out the night, small business survey. There was a thought going around that maybe we should survey the businesses with regards to asking them how POPs can best help them coming out of COVID. Like where should we be pointing ourselves in a leadership role to help out the merchants as we go forward in this year? Because this last year was the year of shutting down and surviving. This year is the year of rising. So we want to see how we can come out and be relevant and help people come out of COVID in the most successful way as possible. So are there any, I would like to see if we can get some suggestions for some questions that we can ask that, you know, businesses can answer. I think if we can keep it to maybe 5 or 10 questions, keep it simple. I'd like to pass a survey out to small business, I mean, not pass out, email out to small businesses and have them respond. Like was that Survey Chimp? Is that the name of the? Was that the name of the survey?
Monkey, Survey Monkey, MailChimp Survey Monkey.
I'm so good with all these names. So anyway, are there any suggestions that we can ask on the survey?
Well, I think you kind of set up the question, which is how could POPs best help you in during this recovery time?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like what makes sense to like what do you want from us? Like, is it more information? Is it more engagement? Is it more advocacy? I think just like having a survey is just more information to kind of know how to best advocate.
Maybe what would you like to see more in our newsletter? Hmm?
Well, not everyone has the computer or has like time to read it. So like, should we pass out? Like, is there can we leave copies at the police station that you can pick up, or should we mail them? Like, I think Margaret mails actually like her newsletter to people because not everyone has a computer.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
things like that.
Okay.
Actually, I do a hybrid. It goes out and, to everybody who has internet. And then those who do not, I USPS.
Yeah, I meant it would be a hybrid. We would still do the online newsletter.
Okay. Or events, maybe how would events support your small businesses?
I think the public safety question is really big. Like, I think that's something that I'm hearing a lot of, not only from our businesses, but throughout the city. So just like maybe even like, should we advocate together to push for more foot beats,
Okay. Anybody else there?
Didn't we have something before to promote different businesses?
I mean, like a spotlight
Yeah.
type of thing?
Yeah. Was there a newsletter or something that maybe this was back when we had the movies, and then, I thought you guys had talked about spotlighting different businesses.
Yeah,
with
we have.
videos.
We've been doing that. It's just not every month.
Oh, okay. Like with the videos and everything.
That
No,
was
not videos. Just
that was something we were doing with Herbert Hoover Junior High. One of the teachers was having their media class film like little commercial vignettes, and then we would post them online, as well as we were presenting them at the movies. That stopped since COVID started, but I think we can maybe look to just spotlighting now for spotlighting businesses just on the newsletter until we can get more going. Hey, Christian. All right. I think that's about 6 points right there. I'll go work something up. Wesley, we can work on that together off the meeting, okay, after the meeting, maybe in a day or two, okay?
Sounds good with me.
Okay, great. Okay. Any other questions for the meeting tonight? Margaret?
Just speaking of spotlighting, in the last newsletter, everyone is very kind to spotlight the reopening outdoors in a tent as part of Sunset Wellness Mercantile, the reopening of Senior Power. It was a big success. There's now a new saying. It's not if you build it, they will come. It's if you raise the tent, they'll come. And they did. And we're going to go back at it on May 13 and do it again from 9 to 1 if anyone's around. But I want to thank you very kindly for highlighting Senior Power in our first outdoor event. And by golly, if the seniors can go out, so can everybody else. So we're just going to show you the way.
Glad
Okay,
you liked it.
Thank you very much.
wonderful. Okay, thank you. All right, everybody, I will move to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, all right, bye now. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.